Okay, should I start it now?
Yes, madam, you can start.
Almaz ma'am. Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you can start now.
Yeah. My voice is clear, na ma'am?
Yes, yes, it's clear.
Okay. Good morning to one and all. This is Vaijayanti Patil from Turbe MPS. Welcoming back for online education channel by BMC. As we are dealing with chapter number 15, life processes in living organism. Today we will be dealing with human nervous system. Actually, we have started with it yesterday itself. We have studied, I have explained to you there are three types of nervous system in human beings. First is the central nervous system. That is what we have studied yesterday in detail. Central nervous system consists of brain and spinal cord. We have discussed about different parts of the brain, that is cerebrum, cerebellum, and medulla oblongata, along with its function. The cerebrum is mainly concerned with the intellectual activities, artistic activities, memorizing the things, movement of the hands and legs, language skills, thinking, critical thinking or analytical thinking, decision making capacity. This all depends on the cerebrum. Whereas cerebellum is the smallest part of the brain which is present just below the cerebrum. The grooves on it are minor grooves and small in number. Function of cerebellum is it coordinates the activities of the brain. It controls the balancing of our body. Okay. Whereas the third part is medulla oblongata. It is also known as the stem of the brain or the hind brain. It consists of two triangular pyramids and a long extension which extends into the spinal cord. Medulla oblongata, even though if it is the terminal part of the brain, it is very important because it controls all the involuntary functions of our body, like beating of our heart, activities of the lung, breathing, coughing, sneezing. All these involuntary activities are controlled by the medulla oblongata. Then we have studied about the spinal cord, which helps in giving out the reflex actions, and it works as a relay center for receiving the sensory impulse, sending it to the brain, and carrying out motor impulses from the brain to the different parts of the body. Then the second is peripheral nervous system, in which we are going to look in details of the peripheral nervous system today, and the autonomic nervous system. The peripheral nervous system majorly consists of two types of the nerves that are coming from the brain and the spinal cord, and it covers the entire body. Whereas the autonomic nervous system consists of the nodes or the ganglia, bundle of the neurons that are present along the spinal cord and which controls the autonomic, means the involuntary functions of our internal organs. We will look into details of peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system today. The first is peripheral nervous system. As I said, peripheral nervous system consists of the nerves that are originating from the central nervous system, that is, from the brain and the spinal cord. This nerve connects the central nervous system with all the parts of the body. It may be your eyes, lips, ears, nose, hands, entire skin of the body. Everything is networked to our brain with the help of peripheral nervous system. Talking about types of peripheral nervous system, there are basically two types of peripheral nervous system. One is the cranial nerves. These cranial nerves, as the name suggests, cranial means coming out of cranium, that is brain. The nerves that are coming out of our brain, as you can see in this picture, these are the nerves that are coming out of the brain and covering the entire face as well as the lower part of the body. They are known as cranial nerves. Second type is the spinal nerves. As the name suggests, spinal means coming out of the spine. The nerves that are coming out of the spinal cord and covering the entire body are known as spinal nerves. Let us see in detail about this. First is cranial nerve. As I said, cranial nerves are the nerves originating from the brain. They are known as cranial nerves. There are total 12 pairs of cranial nerves which are associated with various parts in our body. Now see, this picture makes the clear view of the nerves that are coming out of the cranium, which means brain, and covering the different parts of the body. Eyes, facial muscles, throat, esophagus, digestive system, facial muscles, all the nerves. Okay. So it is associated with head, movement of head, thorax. Thorax means the chest region. So it also covers the chest region and the abdomen. Abdomen means the region of the stomach. Okay. So these three areas are majorly covered by the cranial nerves. The next type is the spinal nerves. As it is clear from this picture, this is the spinal cord and the nerves that are coming out of this spinal cord are known as spinal nerves. So the nerves originating from the spinal cord are called as spinal nerves. There are total 31 pairs of spinal nerves controlling different functions of our body. Now, they are associated with legs, arms, skin, and the other parts of our body. Okay, remember there are total 31 pairs originating from the spinal cord. They are known as spinal nerves. It controls or it is associated with our legs, arms, skin, and the other parts of our body. Next is autonomic nervous system. This is also known as the nervous system which controls the involuntary organs or the movement of or the involuntary movements. In this GIF, you can see that these yellow, these are the ganglias or the nodes which have the neurons associated with the autonomic nervous system. These nerves controls the movement of involuntary organs like heart, lung, digestive system. This is the part of digestive system, the excretory system, and the reproductive system. So, the autonomic nervous system consists of the nerves of involuntary organs. It controls heart, lungs, stomach, and reproductive organs. It is not under our control. It is controlled directly by the brain. It is not under our control. So remember, you can associate autonomic with automatic. It is not under our control. It controls the involuntary organs, the organs that are not under our control. Which are such organs? They are heart, lungs, stomach, reproductive system. You can say digestive system, reproductive system, and excretory system. So all these systems which keeps on functioning without the control of our will, it is controlled by autonomic nervous system. Now, let us see the activity. Well, what you can see in this picture, there is a flame. The person touches the flame, and here you can see as soon as he touches the flame, the hand is taken back, right? Same thing happens with us when we touch any hot object or the burning flame, we will immediately take our hands back. You know, this activity, which occurs immediately, sometimes even without our knowing, without, that is unknowingly, it happens. Such activities are known as reflex action. Now, the numbers that are marked over here are actually showing the components that are present in the reflex action. Now, first, over here, you can see that the hand is, or the skin is receiving the stimuli. So, this is known as the receiver organ. Okay. Then, when the stimuli is received, you can see this green nerve, a impulse, electric impulse is generated in this sensory neuron. Then that is carried. You can see this direction. It is going towards the body. It is going towards the spinal cord. See this arrow, the green nerve that is showing the arrows that is going towards the spinal cord. Okay. So the impulse that is generated is carried to by the sensory neuron to the association neuron. This is the association neuron, which is present in the spinal cord. Okay, so this is the spinal cord. Impulse is carried to the association neuron present in the spinal cord. Now, in this association neuron, the impulse that is carried out by the sensory neuron is understood, is interpreted. Interpreted means is understood according to our previous practice or thinking. Now, this association neuron will then generate another impulse that is known as motor impulse. Now, this motor impulse, if you see the arrow, see this arrow, note this arrow, the impulse, that is motor impulse, is carried by the motor neuron to the effector organ. Now, this is the effector organ. Which is the effector organ? The muscles. As soon as the motor impulse reaches the muscles will contract, and due to contraction of the muscles, the hand will be taken back. Okay, so this is known as reflex action. See, actually, these actions are very quick and it occurs within a fraction of second. Even you don't understand what has happened and something has happened. That is known as reflex action. But if we try to understand that process, the process, it starts with receiving the stimuli from the external environment by the sensory organ, which consists the sensory neuron, which carries the sensory impulse to the association neuron, which is present either in the spinal cord or in the brain, where a new impulse is generated, which is known as motor impulse. This motor impulse is carried out by the motor neuron, and it is carried out to the effector organ. This effector organ, it may be a muscles or it may be a gland. When this motor impulse reaches the effector organ, the movement of that organ occurs. Okay, if it is a gland, certain type of secretion will take place. If it is hand or if it is leg, movement of that part will take. If it is an eyelid, closing and opening of eyelid will take place. When you want to talk, your mouth will open. Okay, so according to the stimuli, the response is given. See, if I am asking you a question, my question is a stimuli for your brain. Okay, your ears, you are hearing my question, the sensory impulse is generated, it is taken to the brain, where the brain associates the thing, it prepares the answer, that is the motor impulse, which is carried out by the motor nerves to your mouth, through which you speak the answer and I get my answer back. So this is how the reflex action is taking place. I hope you understood the mechanism of reflex action. We will see it again. Reflex action. Now, first, what is reflex action? An immediate and involuntary response given to a stimulus from the environment is called as reflex action. Remember this word, immediate and involuntary response. For what? For the stimuli. Stimuli means anything that is occurring outside, that is the external environment, and that response is known as reflex action. Now, I will again explain you with the help of this chart. See, movement of the leg. When the leg is hammered, now this knee becomes the sensory organ. So, the impulse or the stimuli is received. Okay, when the stimuli is received, the sensory impulse is generated. Now, this is the sensory neuron which is carrying the impulse to the association neuron in the spinal cord. Here, the motor impulse is generated with it, which is carried by the motor neuron. See, this impulse is coming. Okay, motor impulse is carried to the muscles of the leg, which will lead into the movement of the leg. Okay, see, that is if you see a ball, even when you see a ball, it triggers you to go and kick the ball. Even so, that ball is the stimuli for your brain. So the impulse is generated accordingly and the response is generated. You go and kick the ball. Okay. Sometimes we react to an incident without any thinking on our part or control over the reaction. Na? See, when there is mosquito biting, we don't have to think, Are, should I kill this or should I not kill this? Should I kill it with my hands, or I have to take my book, or I have to take the bat? No. Simply your hand moves and you pat where the mosquito is sitting. It may fly, that is the reflex action of that mosquito. Okay, but what is your reflex action? As you see the mosquito is sitting on your body, you will immediately pat your hand. Even many times it so happen that we don't even see the mosquito, but something pricks in our hand or the legs and our hand moves in that direction. So this is where we are not thinking, but the action is occurring. Such immediate and involuntary responses to the stimuli is known as reflex action. Now, in such situation, proper control and coordination is achieved even without intervention of the brain. That is, the reflex action does not require the involvement of brain. Majorly, in major of the situations, the impulse, that is the motor impulse, is generated within the spinal cord itself and the action is taking place. So it may or may not involve the involvement of the brain during the reflex action. I hope the concept of reflex action is clear to you all. Immediate and involuntary response given to the stimuli from the environment is known as reflex action. Now, there are five major components of the reflex action. What are these? The first is receptor organ. What is receptor organ? The part of the body that will receive the stimuli from the environment, that is known as receptor organ. In our first class itself, we have discussed about the receptor organs. They are skin, ear, nose, tongue, and eyes. Next component is sensory neuron. Now, what is sensory neuron? The nerves, these are the specialized nerve that will carry impulse to the brain and spinal cord. Remember, sensory neuron will carry impulse to the brain and spinal cord. Then the third is association neuron, the one that is present in the spinal cord or in the brain. It will receive the sensory impulse, interpret it. Interpret means understand it, associate it with our previous experiences and generate the motor impulse. Okay. So all the part of interpreting the data or understanding the impulse takes place in the association neuron, and it also generates the motor impulse according to the stimuli that is received. Then the fourth component is motor neuron. This motor neuron carries motor impulses from the brain or spinal cord to the effector organ, where from the brain or spinal cord to the effector organ. Now, what are the effector organs? This may be your hands or the muscles of your hands, legs, or any part of the body, or it may be the glands when it comes into the internal body. And then the effector organ. Effector organ is the one which will respond to the stimuli. For example, if your hand is touching the hot object, your hand itself is a receiver organ and the effector organ, because the same hand which is burning with the flame is taken back, right? So the same part is the receiver and the effector organ. What happens when the flame, you touch the flame, it burns your hand, impulse is generated, carried to the brain, from where motor impulse is generated, because of which muscular movement will take place, and the hand will be moved back. So in that case, hand itself is the effector as well as the receiver organ. Now, let me discuss one more example. Any visual perception. Say, if you see some sweet that you love very much. Okay. Now, in this case, impulse is taken in or is generated in your eyes because you have seen the sweet. Okay. So, the sensory organ is your eyes. The impulse is generated within the eyes. Sensory impulse is generated within the eyes. Then it is carried by the sensory neuron to the brain where the association neurons are present. The thing is interpreted or the impulse is understood and interpreted, according to which motor impulse is generated, which is carried by the motor neuron to the muscles. Now, which muscles? As that is a thing that you have to eat. So, first, muscles of your hands will move to pick up that sweet. Okay, so that is one effector organ. And the second is you will put it in your mouth, you will chew and eat it. So, your mouth is also a effector organ. So, in this case, see, there are two effector organs. Signal or the stimuli is received by the eyes and the response is generated with your hands for picking the sweet and your mouth for eating that sweet. Okay. So according to any situation or the stimuli, the response may differ. So this is all about the reflex action. Now, let me revise quickly what we have studied today. We have studied about the first peripheral nervous system. What is peripheral nervous system? It consists of the nerves that are coming out from the brain and spinal cord, and it enters into all the external parts of our body. All the periphery. Periphery means the outer region, outer surface of our body is known as periphery. Okay. So the periphery nervous system reaches to the entire surface of our body. This is of two types. One, spinal nerves, and the second, cranial nerves. Cranial nerves consist of the nerves that are coming from the brain. Remember, cranium means brain. Nerves coming out of the cranium is known as cranial nerves. It basically controls the facial or the activities of the head movement or whatever activity you're doing with your head. It is controlled by the facial nerves that are coming from the brain. Then it also covers the thoracic, means the chest region, and the abdomen, means the stomach region. Okay. Then the next type is the spinal nerves. Spinal, as the name suggests, these nerves arises from the spinal cord. There are altogether 31 spinal pairs of spinal nerves coming out from the spinal cord. This also covers the entire surface of our body. Importantly, our hands, our legs, and the back region. These all parts are covered by the spinal nerve, and hence the response that we are giving is also basically generated within the spinal cord. Then we have studied about autonomic nervous system. I have told you, relate autonomic with automatic, so that will be easy to understand. Autonomic nervous system controls the activities that are involuntary in nature. Autonomic nervous system consists of the nodes or mass of neurons that are present alongside of the spinal cord. The nerves that are arising from these ganglia or the ganglion covers the internal organs. Which are they? All the involuntary organs. Our heart, our lungs, our digestive system, our reproductive system, our excretory system, all the internal organs which are not under our control are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. Okay. Then we have discussed about reflex action. What is reflex action? Any immediate and involuntary response generated to the stimuli received from the external environment is known as reflex action. Basically, reflex action is controlled by the spinal cord, and there are five components of this reflex action. As I have told you, the first is the receptor organ, that is any sensory organ which will receive the stimuli from the external environment. It may be skin, it may be ear, nose, tongue, or eyes. Then the sensory neuron, which will generate electric impulse and carry it to the brain or the spinal cord. Then comes the association neuron, which will receive the sensory impulse, interpret it, that is, understand it, and generate motor impulse. Then comes the motor neuron. This neuron will carry motor impulse generated in the brain and spinal cord to the effector organ. And last but not the least is the effector organ. Effector organ is any part of our body. It may be muscles, it may be glands that will give respond to the stimuli, as we have discussed in the earlier examples. Now, assignments. First is differentiate between peripheral nervous system and autonomic nervous system. Let us differentiate between this. See, peripheral nervous system controls the muscles and movement. Autonomic nervous system will control internal organs and glands. Remember this, internal organs and the outer organs. Then peripheral nervous system controls both voluntary and involuntary activities, that is reflex actions also. So voluntary and involuntary activities, whereas autonomic nervous system will control only the involuntary activities, that is movement of the internal organs. I hope you understood the difference between peripheral and the autonomic nervous system. Remember, peripheral nervous system controls the peripheral organs. Peripheral means the surface organs, whatever are on the surface. Then autonomic nervous system controls the internal organs, that are the vital organs, including our digestive system, reproductive system, excretory system, and all. Now, what is meant by reflex action? An immediate involuntary response given to the stimuli from the environment is called as reflex action. Student, you might just take a screenshot of this and write it in your notebook. Those who want to pursue science in your further life, this chapter is very important. See, with the view of giving the entrance, if in case you want to do pharmacy or doctor or medicines. Okay, so in that case, this chapter is very important. It is base for your 12th standard also, because same chapter you have in a detail for a detailed study in your 12th standard. Okay, with a huge marks for it. So prepare it from now itself. Prepare it very nicely. It is very easy to understand as it is your own brain and your own nerves. It is about your own body. If you associated everything with what you are doing and what is happening in your body, it will be very easy and simple to understand the topic. And remember, you don't need to memorize. You'll be remembering it if you associate it with the activities that are occurring with yourself within your body. Okay. On this note, I complete today's lecture. I hope you have understood the concepts of peripheral nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and the reflex action. If in case you have any doubt, we can discuss it after this video. Thank you for listening to the lecture quietly, and please do clear your doubt if you have any. Thank you. Ma'am, hello. Yes, anyone is having any doubt? Students, if you have any doubt, you can unmute yourself and clarify your doubt.
Yes, students. If you are having a doubt, just raise your hand.
Yes, Abdul Rahim. Unmute yourself and ask.
You can unmute yourself, students.
Yes, student. What are the parts of central nervous system? Hello. Who will answer? Central nervous system is what we have studied yesterday. What are the parts of central nervous system? Yes, Rupali, answer.
Yes, teacher.
Yes.
Teacher, the nervous system has two main parts. The central nervous system is made up of the brain and spinal cord. The
Very good.
peripheral nervous system is made up of nerves that branch off from the spinal cord and extend to all parts of the body.
Yes. And autonomic nervous system? Autonomic nervous system consists of the nerves that covers the Yes, Rupali, answer. Just unmute
Teacher, I don't
yourself and
have any
answer.
idea.
Yeah?
Sorry, teacher, I don't have any idea about it.
अरे बेटा, autonomic nervous system is the nerves that
Control system,
controls the,
teacher. Control system
yes,
that acts largely unconsciously and regulates bodily function such as
of
the heart rate,
involuntary organs.
digestion, respiratory rate.
Yes, very good.
Am I right, teacher?
Yes, yes, very good. Excellent answer.
Thank you, teacher.
Next, what is reflex action? What about others? Avnish, why are you not answering today? Avnish Dubey, what happened to you today? Yes, Sakshi, answer. Just unmute yourself and answer, Sakshi.